Hello, welcome to another episode of Mirus Sofa Time. Joined by a special guest today, Adon Blackwood from Mimecast.
Hello,
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk a bit about email security, phishing and those kind of bits and pieces. So I guess first off, do you want to give a bit of background on yourself, your history?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why you're such a subject matter expert?
Sure, so I'll talk about my current role. So I'm currently working at Mimecast. I've been here about 9.5 months. I'm a sales engineer there, so a lot of my time is spent in customer meetings, doing demonstrations, presentations, talking about the cyber threat landscape. So that could be email security, it could be web security, but not just security itself, talking about business continuity, so making sure that any services that you have, i.e. Office 365 or G Suite that you're using to send email, remain online, and should anything go wrong, you have a failover solution for that. And then there's a bit that we typically speak about, which is archiving in GDPR. So that's my main role. Previous roles, I spent a lot of time doing stuff around awareness. So phishing simulations, targeting employees and end users in different organizations to find out where their risk areas were. Sending out simulated attacks that you typically see in the wild, and from that you can identify which of the employees need more training. So a lot of my experience over the last 5 years has been around cybersecurity, from kind of email protection to employee engagement and awareness training.
I guess a good place to start is phishing, and that seems to be the kind of primary attack vector nowadays, and simulation of emails and that kind of thing. I think a recent email security report you did is like 94% of businesses have seen phishing attacks or attempted phishing attacks. Yeah,
it's a really, really big number. I think the thing that worries me the most around phishing emails is there's kind of two spectrums of them, right? So you've got some of the phishing emails that look obvious, they stand out, they don't look legitimate, and people can spot those easily. And then you've got some of the stuff that's cleverly crafted, business email compromise, BEC, or impersonation attacks. And that's where someone's gone away, done a bit of research, dedicated a bit of time to try and make the email look legitimate. Good example of that, most organizations have probably seen these attacks, is someone going away, register an account that uses the same first and last name as their MD or finance director, someone that has authority within the organization, right? If they're clever enough, they'll go away and register a domain that looks very similar to your own email domain. And this is different from spoofing because it's not using your actual domain, it's going away and registering one that looks very similar. So some of the attacks that we see at Mimecast, a great example is people using different characters that look similar to a legitimate domain. Great example, mimecast.com. Imagine someone went away and found mimecast.com but uses a 1 instead of the I. Really small nuance, unless you're quite savvy, you won't pick that up.
Especially we all receive so many emails.
Precisely.
Do you look intently at the address that you're receiving it from to pick up that kind of thing? You always, those clever things that you see, can you read this word, this sentence
exactly.
Is a jumble? Your brain automatically reads what it wants to read.
And that's kind of just one side of it. So a character that's out of place, some people will spot, especially if they've been stung in the past. So now they're more aware and look at the slight nuances that you see in emails. But there are some other attacks that use non-Western characters, as an example. So grabbing an A or an I from another alphabet, but at a glance looks very similar. Yeah. How is your end user going to spot that? So sometimes that's not really about awareness, it's about technical controls. Yeah. So ultimately, when it comes to phishing attacks, a couple of areas you need to think about is what technical controls do you have in place for that really nasty targeted stuff that requires your end users to be super savvy or technical. And then the other part is the awareness itself. Do end users actually know how sophisticated phishing emails are?
That's the thing. I think we've seen how, and also not just in one hit goes. It's that repeated pattern of trying to build up, gain information so that they get a better picture of what. So when they reach the right recipient, they're seeing something actually is. Whether that's, we've even been so far as someone's kind of had a copy of an invoice, literally recreated a copy of an invoice. Sent that from an email address that you would, unless you looked very closely, would not notice it.
Well, there's so many different ways you could receive a phishing email. There could be a double-barrel attack, which uses a combination of emails. So the first one is a generic email. There's nothing malicious in it. So there's no attachment. There's no malicious URL. It's just some text that says, got some details that I need to send to you. Currently on the road, but I'll fire it over to you in the next hour or so. So now if that email looks legitimate and it's got the same first and last name as someone you know, and it's got a similar domain, it looks okay. Now you're sitting in your inbox waiting for another email to come in. If you haven't spotted it's not legitimate, that second email comes in, has an attachment. If you don't have the right technical controls in place for your email, you open up that attachment and then there's ransomware all over your network. So there's clever ways. The double barrel attack is one. Impersonation attacks, which are quite nasty because, again, they don't have anything malicious in terms of content in the message. There's no URL, there's no attachment. It's just worded so good, sometimes using the nuances of whoever your managers are, which they can pick up off LinkedIn or social media.
People give so much information away on the web, and not intentionally, but you can easily find who someone's manager is, or a director, or a CEO. It's not difficult to find who those people are, and once you know their email,
it's pretty easy to piece things together.
It's not difficult.
Not many people do this. I guess some people do it for other reasons, but it's always good to throw like a Google search out on yourself or your email address to see what comes back. One, that will give you good scope of what your internet footprint looks like. So if you're able to obtain that information, anything you see, any criminal, any attacker can go away and do the exact same. If you're high profile, imagine you're a finance director, MD at a certain organization, and you have some kind of purchasing or payment authority, people can ride off the back of that and exploit your organization. If we're talking about SMBs specifically, I've heard a bit of a scare story where we had one organization that wired out 80K to an attacker. Depending on how big your organization is, 80K can be a significant amount of money. So you really need to think about all vectors, not just email security, not the technical controls, but you need to educate your end users as well.
That's the thing. I think also, if you were an SMB or a small business that got attacked and ended up paying 5, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds, it's not something you're going to publicise either.
Absolutely
because
not.
Hands up, we were spoofed, we were phished, whatever, and we've paid an invoice to somebody for £20,000. Let's tell the world about it. No one talks about it because you're not going to.
And that's one part. There's sending out money, so making a wire transfer to someone that isn't legitimate, and that of course can do damage to an organization. But what if you leak customer information accidentally, thinking that's a legitimate source and it's an attacker? You're going to have to inform those customers and let them know what's happened. So there's more than just kind of revenue that's at risk here. It's also your brand reputation and any sensitive information for those customers that you have on your records. There's multiple layers there. It goes back to the whole defense in depth, right? Having multiple layers of security in case one fails, you have a fallback. You want to make it as difficult as possible for any attackers that are trying to breach or get information from you.
And I think we've tried heavily over the last probably 8 to 10 months of really trying to push the idea of educating users, because that's a really great first line of defence. Obviously there's all sorts of technical solutions we can put in place, but if we educate people to spot the simplest things, then that really helps as well. In terms of technical solutions, I guess what's your recommendations about what people should do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first one, and it relates to your professional life and also personal life, is be very intentional and mindful about your internet footprint. So information that's available that exists on the internet via a simple Google search, try it and see what comes back. The reason for that is that will give you a good idea of what you need to change. So do I need to reduce the amount of personal information that's online, or do I want to put information out there so I know that if there is some kind of attack, I know where the source is coming from, i.e. coming from LinkedIn. So be very intentional with what you put out there. The next, which is free, and a lot of people don't do this surprisingly, is two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. Basically setting up a passcode along with your password when you're logging into accounts. Most accounts support that, so I have it set up for LinkedIn, Facebook, my Google account, because that has access to my email. If someone was to breach my inbox, they pretty much can do anything they want. So 2FA is a good one.
I think I went to Microsoft Future Decoded last week and watched a session from the Chief Security Officer from Microsoft, and he's like, if I can give you one message in this room, just put multi-factor authentication on everything that you use. You need to get that out. to businesses and customers. And
absolutely, it's interesting how many people don't know that it's available and what it is. And it's another layer of security, right? And for some people that don't want to have a different password for every account they have, even though there's password managers, even if you use the same password for everything, at least turn on 2FA. It's an easy thing to do. And if you're kind of laxed about what you do with passwords, that's definitely the number one recommendation. There's lots of tiny nuances. If you're using, I don't know if Hotmail does the same, but Google has a service where you can set up an alert anytime your name's mentioned on a Google search page, which is quite handy. If you're high profile, great, you've got scope of what's going on. If you're not high profile, your name pops up, you can check it out and be one step ahead. So it's really just thinking about where your information sits, right?
Yeah, I don't think it'd be anything exciting to come up about me, but
I'll try it later.
Yeah, should see what we can find. Yeah, and I think, like I said, we've really tried hard to do the educate, because I think it's easy from an IT company's perspective that looks after multiple different businesses to kind of, people may think you're trying to push this scare story and trying to use a kind of a scare tactic to get people to buy a solution, but we've really tried to take the approach of educating people so that they understand that it is a real thing, that you need to train people, but do some simple things that don't actually cost a fortune, that you can help yourself to avoid being one of these statistics that...
I think the sad thing, especially around the SMB space, is they think that their businesses are too small to be desirable to an attacker. And one, that's a shame, and two, that's not the truth. There are attackers out there that specifically target SMBs because they typically believe that SMBs don't have the best security. They're more laxed about their controls. They don't really care about cybersecurity. So for that reason, that's why they're targeting small businesses. Outside of that, going back to our point earlier on, is sending out tens of thousands of pounds via wire transfer to an attacker could do significant damage to your organization, especially if you're a small business with less than 10 users. So there's a couple of things you want to think about. The other part, especially if you're a UK-based company, is GDPR.
Everybody loves a bit of GDPR.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of sick of hearing about the term, right? But ultimately you need to think about your data and whether it's protected. You're not just protecting your business's data, it's any individual end users, customers that you have on your records. So it's your responsibility to make sure you have the same controls in place. Having the mindset that cybersecurity isn't important because you're a small organization probably isn't the best approach. And it's always kind of good to just give yourself a quick health check, right? Take a look at your stance on security, have professionals validate your services, your email infrastructure, your web security footprint, all of that stuff, and tell you whether you have the right level of protection or not.
I think it's understanding the risks, isn't it? A business might say, you know what, I understand that I maybe have some exposure there, but I understand that risk and I accept it, whereas this, I absolutely don't want that to have any exposure whatsoever. But it's understanding so you make the correct decisions.
Well, it's like your credit score, right? If you're looking to get a mortgage or a new credit card, you're going to probably look up your credit score and your credit history to see what's up there, see if there's any unusual data, things that stand out that shouldn't be there, whether you have a healthy score. And that's your own personal finances, right? And I think the same approach should be taken for your security, your cybersecurity stance. Is get a health check and think about some of your risk areas because you may be oblivious to them. If you think about your credit report, there may be something in there that pops up that you've never seen before and is completely wrong. If you don't have full visibility on what your email infrastructure looks like and where your holes are, someone can easily exploit that, and there's a high likelihood that you wouldn't even know until significant damage is done. So yeah, if you are interested in having some form of health check in your organization or want to have a chat about how you can strengthen your security stance, please get in touch.
So thank you for joining us for today's video.
Thanks for having me, it's been a pleasure.
As we said, if you want to know more about email security, a general security audit, do feel free to make contact, but we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.